Today we're going to carry on the shirim of Kavana in Tefillah. We will go today more into halacha. The title of the shir is Simplifying the halachas of Kavana in Tefillah, in prayer. The purpose of the word simplifying is that to bring them right down, as they say, to the kitchen table, to make them understandable, to make them realistic, and one can apply them and use them in hopefully in daily prayer without any catch or without too much depth, but making it as realistic as possible. We're going to use as our frame of reference the Shulchan Aruch, and maybe we can start with that first of all as a grounding in a definition of Kavana in halacha. Davening with devotion and sincerity is not a midas chasidus. It's not an act of piety, or it's not an optional of righteousness that a person might choose, or yes or no, and the choice is his. It's in Shulchan Aruch, davening with Kavana. As much as one is careful about Hilchos Shabbos, Hilchos Kashrus, Hilchos Nazikin, laws of damages, and all these other laws which are detailed in the Shulchan Aruch, Kavana is exactly the same. It's a halacha, as one is careful with the kashrus of one's tefillin, or in the kitchen, so also one should be as careful, because it's in the Shulchan Aruch, you'll see in Siman Tzadik Ches, and in other places, that Kavana itself is a very clear, precise code of contact in the Shulchan Aruch. Let's begin. When a person davens, a person must be careful to daven. We'll come on to this a little bit later. You must understand the words. But I want to concentrate on one particular phrase, which is the target of the prayer. Who are you talking to? You're talking to the Shechina, the divine presence. Maybe that's why it says, as you walk into a shul, in many shuls, Da lifnei mi ato oimed, who are you standing in front of? In front of the Shechina. But there's a problem. To simplify that, who are we talking to? It's extremely difficult, because ein loidemus haguf, ve'einoi guf. He doesn't have a physical semblance, the Almighty. So where are my prayers going to? Who's the listener? Perhaps we can go one stage removed. And that's what we mean by simplifying it. Rabbeinu Bachai in Parshas Kisiso explains that the name Yud and then Hey and then Vov, which is the name of Hashem, is not even pronounced properly. The Yud and the Hey we don't say. We say the word Adnos, which means a master. The meaning is that we can't say the word itself because we don't know what it means. And we would be transgressing Lo sisa Shem Hashem Lashov, taking his name in vain, because we don't understand what that word means. So therefore we give the title of master. It's not the etzem word, it's a removed title. It's Adnos is the master, but we don't refer to him as he actually is. We have to say, because we don't know what the word means. Meaning the creator, the provider, the supervisor, the manager, the creator. It's perhaps more the title of Elokeinu than it is of Yud-Kei Vov-Kei. And if you could perceive I'm talking to he who gave me my heart, my limbs, my family, my life, my money, the breath that I breathe, the words that I speak. So my creator is not the Shechina, it's a stage removed, but that's fine, because on that basis one can concentrate on who one is talking to. He's personified as the master. And that in itself allows a person to have Kavana in prayer, because you objectively think of the creator rather than the Shechina, which is perhaps for us a title which is more anomalous. We don't understand that fully. Then the Shulchan Aruch goes on. I'm almost listing the halachas as we go through the Shulchan Aruch, that when you stand and pray, one should remove all thoughts which are troubling you, ad shetishoy machshavto v'kavanosai zako b'tfilosai, until one's mind is clear with the words one is saying. Why? Why, if I have 10 thoughts in my mind, an uncle who's not well, a daughter who needs a shidduch, a husband who needs a parnasa, a brother who's lonely, there are many, many thoughts and needs which fly through the mind when one is praying. But according to the Shulchan Aruch, you have to be zako b'tfilosa, clear in your mind when you're saying the words. Why? What is so important on that? Why can't I daven with all these thoughts in my mind, and the Rebbeinu Shalom will take the thoughts which I have, and as I'm praying, as I'm saying the words from the Siddur, these hundreds of thoughts fly through my mind, and they're all requests, they're all different things which I need. What's wrong with that? Why does my mind have to be clear? Perhaps we can explain, and simplifying this halacha, in the following way. A person can daven for many years, but remain an amateur. A professional has a certain distinctive trait, and that is, he's never distracted from the work at hand. I'll give you an example. A professor walks around the hospital wards with a team of doctors behind him and comes to the bedside of a patient. And he asks him, "Mr. Cohen, how are you feeling today?" And he says, "Well, I'll be honest with you, my leg hurts, I don't have much of an appetite, I don't sleep very well." What's the first thing the professor does? Most likely he looks at the chart and feels the pulse. But what's he feeling the pulse for? He never said his pulse is hurting. Why is he feeling the pulse? The reason is because he's a professional. And the man might not sleep at night, his leg might be hurting, he hasn't got an appetite, but a professional is not sidetracked. Maybe that's why we call it finger on the pulse. Finger on the pulse means that you're not distracted. He knows what he's looking for. And the other issues of not appetite or sleeping at night maybe are symptomatic of something, but he goes straight to the point. He's not distracted with side information. I'll give you another example. For example, a judge in court. If you're in court and you wouldn't dare dream of doing such a thing, but as the judge is listening to the evidence, would one of the defense counsel turn around and say, "Your Honor, can I just ask you, I heard that you went and took a vacation in Miami. Which hotel did you go to?" He'd probably throw you out of court for contempt of court. You're in court. He's a professional. That's irrelevant information. If you go to a top lawyer and you go and discuss a certain case which you need legal assistance, and you start to say, "I noticed in the car park you have a new car. Are you pleased with it?" Sir, you're wasting your time. It's expensive to talk to me. A professional doesn't get sidetracked with information which is irrelevant. Of course, maybe the best example, if you had a meeting with the President of the United States or Her Majesty the Queen in England, you would have 5 minutes and every sentence would be measured, which word first, which phrase last, and how you'd put it together. You don't get sidetracked. You don't get into any issue which is not relevant to the issue that we're talking about. Kol shekein, alachas kama v'kama, b'fnei melech malchei hamlochim. It's not professional to have in your mind other thoughts. And we mean like this. To be a professional in prayer, if you're saying the words, Mechalkel chaim b'chesed, that's what you're thinking of. If you're saying, V'ahavto es Hashem elakecha, you're not thinking of a choyle. If you're saying the words, Moedem anachnu loch, you're not thinking of a shidduch for your daughter. If you're saying the words, Ashrei yoshbei beisecha, you're not thinking of an uncle who's lonely. It's irrelevant. True, one comes to prayer with many thoughts in mind, but perhaps this is simplifying what the Shulchan Aruch means. Zako b'tfiloso means ensuring that the words that I'm saying are the words on my mind and no others. And that's the meaning of a professional and not an amateur. Let's move on to another halacha. In Shulchan Aruch, in Siman Tzadik Ches, Sif Daled, the Shulchan Aruch has great detail that hatfilah hi b'mokom hakorban. It's in place of a korban. We know the Novi says, "U'neshalma forim safasenu." Let our lips be instead of the bulls. And there's a resemblance, or in some way a replica, from the prayers that we say to the sacrifices which were brought in the Beis Hamikdash. And says the Shulchan Aruch, this is not a Musa Sefer here, this is halacha. Ulekach tzorich shetiyeh dugmasai hakorban bekavana. And similar to a sacrifice, when the Kohen was active on the courtyard of the Beis Hamikdash, he was unable, under any circumstances, lo ya'oreh bo machshava acheres, k'mo machshava sheposedes bekodshim. Any other thought, there's halachas of pigul, halachas of psul in Masechtas Zvachim, all these cancel the validity of the korban. In other words, one has to be careful, like a korban. I once saw a maimah of Rabbi Yehuchim, Das Chochma Musa, where he explains that tefillah is even more powerful and more accurate than a korban. You can't bring a korban except in one place. A tefillah you can say in an igloo in Alaska. You can't bring a korban if you don't have a kohen. You need a kohen. Tefillah, anybody can pray. Says Rabbi Yehuchim, you can't bring a korban if you do something willfully, b'mezid. You can daven if even something is a merida against HaKadosh Baruch Hu, a rebellion, still you can pray. So you see, in some capacity, a prayer is even more powerful, and therefore perhaps the kavana must be certainly not mixed in with any other thoughts. Dumya lekorban, similar to a korban. And that's part of the skill and the expertise of a professional in prayer, making sure that like a korban, like a kohen on the courtyard, you're careful of every single word which is said. And of course, zakor b'tfilosa, maybe we can explain to be like a korban, like a kohen, active in active duty. The Shulchan Aruch says in Siman Aleph, related to this point, V'im tova loy machshava acheres b'soich hatfilah yishtoik. And if you do have a thought which troubles you, like a busy bee, in the middle of davening, keeps on flying in and out of your mind, and you're trying to have a clear mind, says the Shulchan Aruch, yishtoik, ad shetisbatel hamachshava. Stop. Don't carry on. You must stop and wait until the thought moves away, and you can concentrate on the next words in the Siddur. I suppose, Lanias Daiti, if I was writing the Shulchan Aruch, I would rewrite those words, not im tova el hamachshava, ukasher tova, when, not if. Nearly always a person is troubled, but one has to have control. How do you have control? How can you command and control your thoughts so that you don't go in and out? Perhaps, simplifying this halacha, we can understand it as to why this is happening. Why is it if you have a cup of coffee, or you're reading a newspaper, or you're talking to a friend, most likely thoughts don't go in and out of your mind and disturb you, because you're having a cup of coffee, or you're reading a novel, or you're looking at the newspaper, or something else, other activity. You don't really get often troubled, but you do when you pray. Davening Musaf on Rosh Hashanah can be a major casualty, and it's a war to try and combat thoughts which fly in and out. Why is that? The reason is because the activity of prayer has so much kedusha to it that it's not like drinking a cup of coffee. The Yetzer Hara is quite easy to leave you alone and let you drink your coffee or read the newspaper. But when you're praying, it's an activity which has so much kedusha to it. The Gemara in Brachos Daf Yud explains they are dvarim she'omdim berumai shel olam. They are words which stand at the height of the world. What does that mean, at the height of the world? Says the Alpren from Kelm in Chochma Umusa, at the height of man who is an olam hakodin. They're the highest words that you would say. It's the words of prayer. They're very powerful words. Maybe we can perhaps give an explanation of that. What's the lowest words a person could say? Give a curse, scream at somebody, say lashon hara. That's low-level words. Go up a level. Hello, good morning, how are you? Are regular, normal words. Go up a level. I was wondering how you are. I was thinking about you. That already shows a feeling, an emotion, a yedidus, an affection. Go up a bit. You can give a person a bracha. Now go right up high. Go completely as high as you possibly can. Mechalkel chaim b'chesed. Mechayei mesim. Why? Because these are words, devorim sha'olam berumoy shel odom, at the heights of man. These are very high quality words. They're the highest words which you will say. And therefore, the Yetzer Hara does his very best to come in and taunt you and entice you away with nuisance thoughts. The Recanti explains why it is on Yom Kippur that when the Kohen Gadol, before he goes into the Lifnai v'Nifnim with the Sa'ir, with the lamb which he goes in with, he first of all sends out of Yerushalayim a Sa'ir la'azazel. Why? In order, says the Recanti, for the Sa'ir Hashem to be operative and effective, you must send the Sa'ir la'azazel first. Meaning that Zeh lu'umat Zeh, there's a bechira, and since you're dealing with such a high propensity of kedusha, matching it is the similar level of a distraction, because that's the way it is. That's the koyach of bechira always. If you're drinking a cup of coffee, the Yetzer Hara has no problems with that. He leaves you be. There isn't much level of kedusha, but there is in prayer. Maybe if one understood that, perhaps the battle is easier. Maybe we should add, you might lose a battle, but you mustn't lose the war. Meaning, you might lose a paragraph, you might lose something in prayer, but not the whole tefillah. Meaning, one has to understand, as we mentioned in the previous shir, that you're working here with percentages. It's unlikely 100% kavana. We mentioned that at first in the previous shir. Similarly here, the levels of intention and devotion and concentration are the levels of kavana. And thoughts do come in and out. If you can keep quiet and if you realize and conscious of what you're dealing with, then already you begin to understand and appreciate what does it mean, the levels of concentration in prayer. As we said, Zaka like a professional, like a kohen in the courtyard. And if a thought does fly in, why is it flying in? You understand the concept of bechira, of zeh lu'umat zeh, because you're dealing with such high levels of kedusha, and it's devarim sha'olam berum shel olam, berum shel odam. Therefore, one can be a little bit more sensitive and aware to what the actual service is of prayer, what you're doing. I'd like to move on to the next halacha. The first was standing before the Shekhinah. The second is a clear mind, and the points which you just raised, and to resemble a korban. And now let's have a look at another halacha in Siman Tzadik Gimel, Seif Gimel in the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch explains that before one davens, Siman Tzadik Gimel, halacha Aleph, Yishoa Shah Achas, you should wait a certain amount of time before praying, so that you can have kavana. The Mishnah Berurah brings down from the Rabbeinu Yonah that in this context an hour means 60 minutes on the clock, but he doesn't paskin like that. A certain time, the time it takes to walk, says the Chofetz Chaim, 8 amas, 8 to 8 tefachim, which is nothing, a few seconds. But you need that time period in order to shift your mind and make sure that you are able to concentrate. The Mishnah explains in Brachas, Chasidim Harishonim Hayushoin Shah Achas would wait 1 hour before davening, an actual hour, 60 minutes on the clock. But the point that we're bringing out is the necessity to prepare yourself to be able to daven with Kavana. Why? What is the reason for this? And the next halach in Siman Tzadik Gimel, Seif Beis, explains why. Lo yama lispale ela be'ema v'hachno, with fear and trembling and humility. Lo mitoch schok v'kalus rosh udvoim betelim v'lo mitoch kas. Not from anger, not from upset, or you just spent your whole time talking a nonsense conversation and then you go in and pray. Why not? Because we have a problem. Our minds do not function like a computer screen. where you can press a button and every second you'll have an entirely new different scene. We don't work like that. The human mind has what's called a lingering impression. And because of that, you can't just switch from one topic, for example, anger or chatter or laughter, and the next second slip into prayer. You need time before to align yourself, to get into the ability. Let's have a look maybe in the halacha on this. One has to be aware of who we are and our limitations. And davening with Kavana requires this time gap to change from one mood, from the mood of perhaps a lower level of conversation, good morning, hello, how are you, how's your family, to Mechalkel Chaim B'Chesed, to lift up to that very high level of concentration of prayer. In other words, what we're bringing out here is that Tefillah requires, let's have a look maybe in the Shulchan Aruch in Siman Tzadik Ches, go back to the Siman Tzadik Sif Gimel, Yisfalo derech tachanunim. The reason why you need this time gap and this alignment and this change in mood is because prayer needs tachanunim. Tachanunim is supplication, hachnor, humility, submission. Karosh, beautiful moshel in the Shulchan Aruch, like a poor man, hamavakesh ba'pesach, who's standing at the door, benachas, and asking, excuse me, but could you help me please? I need help. That's the style of prayer. Shouldn't be like a burden, which we'll come on to later. But the requisite for prayer is a humble heart. Like a poor man who asks, perhaps you can help me. He doesn't have any pride. He doesn't have any arrogance about him. He stands there and asks, could you help me? That's the nature of the mindset of prayer. A humble heart. When one stands in prayer, one is asking for one's needs. We mentioned last time, I am the Eved and he is the Melech. I am the Nivra and he is the Boirei. I am the Kabel and he is the Noisein. I am the Ben and he is the Abba, Ovinu Malkeinu. This framework creates the mood of a humble heart, which we mentioned last week. And it's a prerequisite. It's a halacha in Shulchan Aruch. The Bia Halacha brings down a dea from the Elu Rabbi and the Ma'amar Mordechai and the Bach, where perhaps it's even le'ikuva, that it might damage the prayer completely if one simply davens in such a way without tachanunim, without supplication. The Bia Halacha leaves it at the end and says it's not b'di'eved, l'chatchila one should, but b'di'eved it still counts. And certainly it refers specifically to the first bracha of Shmoneh Esrei, which is the most important of all until Magen Avraham. But this mindset is a mindset of humility, of a humble heart. Perhaps we can turn to the king of humility. David HaMelech, in Kuf Lamed Aleph, describes a scene of how he always projected himself when it came to prayer, probably at all times, but certainly in prayer. In Kuf Lamed Aleph, Shir HaMalas LeDavid, Hashem lo gova libi. I never had like a proud heart, says the Medrash. In Bamidbar Rabbi, it refers to when he was anointed to become king by Shmuel. Young boy becomes a king, but lo gova libi. V'lo romu einai, I never lifted my eyes up with pride and confidence. Say Chazal, when he killed Goliath and all of Klal Yisrael was singing the greatness and the prowess of this Gibor Chayil of David HaMelech compared to Shaul, I didn't have any high heart. I didn't think I was the great warrior. V'lo hilachti bigdolos, and I never walked like with great pride. Say Chazal, when he came back to Jerusalem after Absalom was killed, the king returns. He could have come back with a great splendor and great glory. No. Ubeniflois mimeni, when he brought the ark, the Orein, back to Yerushalayim, into Yerushalayim to the eventual building of the Beis HaMikdash by Shlomo HaMelech, I never thought of myself. These are the four scenes apparently, where David HaMelech could have had the greatest prestige and the greatest prowess and thought of himself, no way, I didn't. So what did I think of myself? Most magnificent imagery which David HaMelech uses. Im lo shivisi v'domamti nafshi. At all times I only really thought of myself as kagomol alei imol, kagomol alei nafshi. I was like a nursing child lying in front of a mother. Can't even raise his head up, can't turn over, can't do anything. Is totally dependent when he's nursing from his mother, can't do anything. That's how I saw myself, kagomol alei nafshi. Beautiful imagery, the humility. Yachel Yisrael Hashem me'ato ve'ado olam. That's prayer. In other words, you should hope in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that's perhaps why we're using this as an analogy for prayer. Yachel Yisrael is to hope, to pray, which is the avodah of prayer. And therefore we see that it's a prerequisite in prayer, this kagomol, like a humble heart, olei nafshi. That's what's required. The Ramchal, in Mesilas Yesharim, in Perek Yud Tes, explains why it is that when we come to daven, we always begin with the sentence, Shmoneh Esrei, Hashem sofosai tiftach ufiyagi tehilosecha. Hashem, open up my lips, and my mouth should declare your praise. What's that sentence doing? Actually, in halacha, it's a shaila, because there is a halacha in Shulchan Aruch. Gemara brings down hasoymech geula letefillah, that as soon as you say God Yisrael, you must start Shmoneh Esrei, but we don't. We have this sentence, Hashem sofosai tiftach, beforehand. Surely it's a hefsek. And the Gemara says, no, it's part of Shmoneh Esrei. Why? Says the Ramchal, the Mesilas Yesharim, because it has in it 3 criterion which enable a person to stand in prayer. Hashem, da lifnei mi'ata oimed. Remind yourself who you're talking to. Sfosai tiftach. I can't possibly open my lips. I can't talk. I'm struck dumb. But ufiyagi telosecha. But I must talk. I must declare your praise. It's a dilemma. It's a paradox. What do? I can't talk, but I have to talk. I have to speak. That's the optimum stance in prayer. Go ahead. Once one is in that framework of Da lifnei mini atadom Hashem, Sfosai tiftach, I can't talk, but I must talk. I have to speak. Those three criterion are the code of practice in which one comes to pray Shmoneh Esrei. That's the humble heart. That's what the Shulchan Aruch means when it says derech tachanunim. The tachanunim is, the supplication is, this approach, this mindset of humility. In reality, the Shulchan Aruch brings it down. We can see a little bit more in a halacha when he mentions, the Chofetz Chaim brings down on the words Ka'oni ha'mevakesh ba'Pesach, like we said, the analogy of the poor man standing at the entrance, who inyan echad. V'roitza loima, says the Chofetz Chaim in the Mishnah Berurah, Seif Cotton Ches, sheyoimu benachas b'loshen tachanunim, an expression of supplication. K'moi shemevakesh rachamim al atzmoi. You're seeking rachamim for yourself. Then we have these choice words of the Chofetz Chaim. V'yosim el liboi, and one should put in one's heart, she'ein biyad shum nivra, that there is no human being in the world. Malach oy mazol oy koichav, lemalos she'elosoi ki im b'rtzono yisborach. No one in the world can help me. No star, no lucky talent, no hidden segula, no rich Uncle Charlie, no connections with the Iriya, with the mayor, with the lawyers. No, I have nothing. One uses these people in order to succeed in life, but when it comes to prayer, they must all be removed. One does make an effort, but when it comes to prayer, like a gomel, like a nursing child, no connections will help. Nothing will help my cause more than just standing in front of the Almighty and praying. That's the framework which is required. Perhaps we can use a posuk from Mishlei, which explains it so clearly. Betach in Perek Gimel, Betach el Hashem b'chol libecha ve'el binoscha al tishoin. Says the Vilna Gaon, there are 2 stages here. Betach el Hashem, when it comes to trusting in the Almighty, b'chol libecha, with all your heart. Use all your heart. Ve'el binoscha, with your understanding, which means efforts, hishtadlus. You make an effort. You make it, aber al tishoin, says the Vilna Gaon, mitayras mishenes, like a walking stick. You make an effort, but you don't rely on it completely. Your heart goes into the prayer, which is betach el Hashem, which is the power of tefillah. The el binoscha is the power of effort that you make. Don't rely on it. Don't bank on it. The heart is reserved for the Almighty. Efforts are made, but only because you have to make an effort, and the best possible effort. And that's the meaning when it comes to prayer, betach el Hashem b'chol libecha. You remove any, says the Chofetz Chaim, any other agents or any other form of medium of perhaps success, hoping that just the prayer alone will count. Perhaps the best example of all we can choose is Eliezer, when he was sent by Avraham Avinu to find a wife for Yitzchak. And he arrived at the well, and Rashi mentions there in Parshas Chayei Sorah that he was given a document where, and it was said that all the money and everything, and Avraham was a multimillionaire, all of the money was going to Yitzchak, this potential chosen. So with a document like this in his hand, really all Eliezer had to do was maybe just go into a few hotel lounges and flash the document in front of a few people. Excuse me, but do you have a young lady for this potential multimillionaire? He didn't do that. He put it in his pocket and stood there, says the Pasuk, Hakrei no lefonai hayayim, ba'asei chesed, with palel, he davened. To be honest, who needs to pray when you have a document in your pocket of millions of dollars? The answer is, because that's why Eliezer was chosen, because he was an Eved Ne'eman. He relied on his prayer and used the document, meaning the money and the nizamim, as we know later when it was clear that Rivka would be the one who would marry Yitzchak. We learn from that when it comes to prayer, you dismiss it all. He kept the document in his pocket. He didn't use it, because prayer, which is the basic, the primary form of effort, where all the heart goes, is b'chol libecha, hakrei no lefonai hayom, the prayer that he used. And it needs a humble heart. I beg for kindness. Son of a multimillionaire doesn't usually have to beg for kindness. But Eliezer was an Eved Avraham. He knew why his master Avraham had given it to him, and he used it carefully and scrupulously, and only brought out the money when after his prayer. And that's really the point that we're saying here, that the humble heart, the karosh, like the poor man, kagomol alei imoy, like the nursing child in front of the mother, that's a mindset. You can't do it unless you have a moment's gap or a hefsek between an activity, for example, a phone call, or looking or talking to somebody, or schmoozing, and prayer. We don't work like a computer screen. And that difference allows you to fit into the mood, which is a mood of tachanunim, as the Shulchan Aruch says, and the Biur Halacha brings down, is certainly lachatchila, but the evid, it's not ma'akev, but certainly in the first bracha, it's the most important of all. I'd like to go on to another halacha, which is Siman Tzadik Dalet Seif Aleph in the Shulchan Aruch.